Millions of people pouring in from all over the world, including criminals of all types.
This is what I was looking for.
11,888 murders, many of whom killed more than one person. We had transgender for everybody, men and women sports, crime ravaging our cities, and the whole world was laughing at us as a nation, but not anymore. 2 years ago,
yeah, they're totally not doing it now.
Was dead. Now we are the highest.
We're looking at American politics, Hunter.
Anywhere in the world, America is respected like we have never been respected before. We have more money being invested in the United States than at any time in the history of our country. More Americans are working today than ever before. This week it was announced that inflation saw the largest monthly decline in more than 6 years. Just happened. It was just given out. The media reported it, and we accept it. The best in 6 years. The tax cuts in our great, big, beautiful bill are saving hardworking families thousands and thousands of dollars, like with the provisions, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors.
Whoa, man, no Fed posting over there,
interest deduction on a loan used to purchase a car, but only if that car
all I'll
is
say on that
America,
is, you know,
and a 100%
maybe some people, maybe some more people should invest in
creating
scopes that didn't before.
Our
But
stock
no Fed
markets
posting
are
over there
at their
in the
highest
chat.
point in many years, but we can actually say of all time. And your 401ks, pensions, and retirement accounts are setting records.
I just got a knock on the door. Give me 1 second here.
Single day, the highest in history. For years, we paid the highest price for prescription drugs anywhere in the world. Now we pay the lowest price under my most favored nation's policy because I was able to get the rest of the world and the pharmaceutical companies to act responsibly. Drug prices are coming down by 70, 80, and 90%. TrumpRx.gov, this will ultimately reduce the cost of health care. You have to go to TrumpRx.gov and take advantage of it. But the cost of health care is coming way down because of what we've done with prescription drugs. And with Trump accounts, every child in America now has access to a tax-free investment account to save for their future. Billions and billions of dollars are being invested, put in by companies and individuals to take care of our children so that at age 18, they will have potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in their account, and they'll get off to a great start in life. So for that, go to TrumpAccounts.gov and sign up your child or any child who'd like to sign up. Our previously wide open borders have been transformed into the most secure borders in the history of our country, with 0 illegal aliens being admitted to the United States in the past 14 months. That is 0. Nobody thought it was possible. We had the worst border in the history of our country, and now we have the best. Crime is plummeting nationwide with the murder rate at its lowest level.
Yeah, I'm definitely anti-Trump.
Or more than 125 years ago. We're making a record investment in our armed forces.
I mean, if you've seen any of my content before, it's not exactly endearing to the guy.
Anywhere in the world. I built it during my first term, and unfortunately, we're forced to use it now. We won in Venezuela, which is now working with us to produce millions and millions of barrels of oil. We are likewise winning big in Iran, and you will see the fruits of that labor very, very shortly. America is back and doing really well, but we still have a major challenge that must be urgently addressed because no country can be great without fair and honest elections. You have to trust your country because if there can be no trust, there can be no greatness, and that's very simple. No trust, no greatness. For many years, I've called for bold, swift, and decisive action to protect the integrity of America's elections. Every American deserves
Oh, here we go. We're going to get the meat and potatoes now.
that vote will be counted accurately in a system, and that is to make that system secure, one where cheating and interference are not just difficult, but virtually impossible.
Something that he has no evidence for, that they've never proven for the 2020 elections, let alone any future elections.
Standard. Tonight, I'm announcing the immediate declassification and release of critical intelligence revealing shocking vulnerabilities in our election infrastructure. This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes.
Because this was the Russia dossier that the Democrats released. Essentially, he's basically saying we're doing Russia dossier 2, Trump version, but now it's pro what I'm saying.
Just as disturbingly, this vital information has for many years been covered up and hidden from you, the American people, our beautiful, our great American people.
Yeah, so a chat over here is saying, he'll do anything to cover his losses in Iran, which is ironic. I mean, it's true. But it's ironic because his losses in Iran are because they're working on covering up the Epstein files. Then the Epstein, it's like they're doing damage control by blundering into whatever the next worst thing is. And they just keep rolling downhill from there,
Reviewed the findings we are presenting this evening and fully confirmed their authenticity. You can see these documents for yourself at whitehouse.gov. That's whitehouse.gov. Go check it out. Our purpose in
check that out later.
This information is not to weaken confidence in election, but to earn that confidence by confronting vulnerabilities and correcting them very, very quickly. And that's what we're doing. The documents cover 5 major areas of concern. First, they show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That information...
Yeah, we're going to be eating crow in Iran, for sure, is a stupid conflict from the start. Even from the perspective of, you want to do a global empire, it was still a stupid idea because of the obvious consequences, which is the reason that no other president has followed Israel into Iran in the past. Even presidents that were very Zionist, like Biden has been Zionist his entire career, essentially. And he wouldn't even go because they pitched it to him. Israel did. And he said no. And it's because he saw that it wasn't even in their best interest in the long run, because they're going to weaken the U.S. by, this whole debacle we're seeing right now. With Cuba, yeah, I mean, he's gearing up as if we're going to go into Cuba because he wants a win to drown out the bullshit in Iran. But we'll see.
Like nobody thought was possible. U.S.
I think that would also just be another debacle.
But the compromise of voter registration files in 2020, when they discovered that tens of millions of voter data, think of that, tens of millions of voters' data in 18 states have been bought, stolen, or hacked by China. Yet those responsible for sounding the alarm instead kept the information secret and hidden. They did not disclose to me as president or to anyone else, and to the best of our knowledge, they did not inform Congress. In fact, all they kept saying is, this is the most secure election in the history of our country.
So you're saying that these random shadow people who have never been tried in court, weren't thrown in jail, you have an entire thing worthy of evidence that you could convict them on that you've done nothing with, and now you're just going to release it to the public instead of prosecuting them in daylight? Because you could do that, and that would be a way of releasing the same evidence that he's saying he's going to release here. But he's not going to do that because it's a bunch of bullshit. Whatever they put out is probably some made up crap from the CIA just running a psyop. But
show CIA reporting explicitly
called it literally CIA.
In mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his re-election. Isn't that nice? Also, in mid-2018, China was working to influence the results of the U.S. midterm elections and later the results of the 2020 presidential election itself. Separately, in mid-2019, the Chinese government's strategy against the United States was focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. They wanted to just make you sound like your president wasn't so hot, when actually your president has done a great job, and they did everything possible to do a...
They're always telling me I am the hottest president, I'm the most beautiful.
The strategy included efforts to use Chinese contacts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the President of the United States of America. The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him as...
Unlike people who were pro-Trump, like Tim Pool, who was being paid tens of thousands of dollars per month. He was getting paid like basically half of a house's worth of payment per month to report pro-Trump stuff. But he's saying that those same governments were also paying out the nose for anti-Trump stuff. So apparently they were wasting millions because they couldn't make up their mind on whether they were pro or anti-Trump.
Name of the person doing the quote is now under review, but it gets even...
And that stuff with Tim Pool, that isn't just me, wild conjecture. He's been found that he was taking that money, and he essentially skated out of it by saying, well, I didn't know they were Russian, and now that I know, he's dropped them as a sponsor, which is part of why he fell off. But
Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA reports about China's election targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance.
They kept everything out because he wouldn't pay attention to the briefings. If you remember, during his first term, they were talking about how they basically had to write in crayon and draw him a freaking picture to get him to pay attention during security briefings, because the regular ones that had full information like this, he just wasn't paying attention. He would skip it or have somebody else tell him. I think it's partially because he's not very literate, to be honest. I don't think he's illiterate. I just think he's not a good reader, and so he doesn't like doing it. So he just skips it whenever he can. Yeah, U.S. politics gives me a headache, too.
Efforts perceive the motivations to be
the U.S., especially the last 10 years, has just been insane. That's why I play video games half the time on the stream, because otherwise I would go insane covering just politics.
That were used to destroy information given by President Barack Hussein Obama to be burned. It was supposed to be burned. These bags were supposed to be at a different level by different people, incinerated and checked, but it never happened. Maybe we got lucky. We believe this was not done on purpose, but rather through gross incompetence of the people that were supposed to burn the bags. But the findings are stunning. Today, I'm asking the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the...
You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the story of what is it? The Mormon guy who he sticks his face into a hat and only he can see the tablets that are written from God, and so he's giving the word of God, but nobody else can look at it. If anybody else looks in the hat, then they can't read the tablets, and he's just making up whatever he wants. This is what that feels like to me. Oh, we found the secret things that nobody else did that were there for Biden's whole presidency, but he didn't know about them, and they were kept out of my briefings, and they were there for my whole presidency, but I didn't know about them. But now that it's convenient for me, I can look into the hat and tell you what ordained from God is coming down. It just, it's a bunch of horse shit.
As long known.
I think he's going to use it as a pretext, obviously. He would have, even without this pretext, probably done some executive orders trying to essentially steal the midterm elections. But this is just what we're seeing as his rationale for it. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Nice. Originally from Iran, so you follow the conflict pretty closely, I'm guessing. And yeah, I mean, the military stuff is interesting to me. But and I know a lot of people in the military that I work with, or former military people. But I prefer when domestic policy doesn't get as far as the military, ideally. But obviously, that's not the world we live in right now.
Official election websites are most vulnerable to exploitation, and adversaries could use this access to these systems to disrupt election processes within the United States.
So he's going to say that we're so vulnerable, so the federal government needs to take it over.
Findings and spanning from January 2020
despite
to June 2026.
The Constitution explicitly outlining the states doing that.
At the very heart of our democracy. Many people have questioned whether it could actually be possible to electronically manipulate vote totals or change election results on these terrible machines. Today, we are releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot to do a big number in favor of the corrupt Maduro regime in Venezuela.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's exactly what happened, conspiring to digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020, and that's what they did. This reporting included precise details about methods to regime develop to digitally alter vote totals in ways that could not be detected even with an audit, no matter how deep they went. This intelligence underscores why we must take urgent action to ensure that our own system can never, ever be hacked or compromised like it was in the past. The fourth set of documents reveals that even when significant evidence of fraud has been detected, it has been buried and covered up. Among the disclosures tonight are FBI files detailing evidence of alleged fraud by a large-scale voter registration operation in Michigan.
Well, Trump can't.
2020 Michigan State Police.
Trump can't lose. The question is, what if Trump loses the midterms? Trump can't lose the midterms directly because midterms are exactly that. They're mid a presidential term. But what could happen is, and what seems to be happening based on the early polling, we haven't had all the generals yet, is you would see a large wave of blue senators and congresspersons, like House of Representatives, for take over, basically. And then if the majority of the House and Senate are blue, they could vote to impeach Trump. They could not pass any of his laws. They could repeal a bunch of his executive actions and basically do things to just make the second half of his presidency very, very difficult for him to do anything he wants to do. Yeah, and then if you have any names of like channels that you follow, like Telegraph or anything like that, that give accurate reporting on the war in Iran, because we can't get it here in the West with Western media. They've been consolidating it for a while, but then with Barry Weiss taking over a bunch of media channels, and then this merger that's coming up that they've been trying to get off, which would totally violate our antitrust laws, but they're going to do it anyway. There's just no way to get good reporting in the West right now.
78,000.
Yeah, they could remove him as president. They could file for impeachment. They would have to get enough grounds for it. You're going to have a bunch of, you have a bunch of establishment Dems that essentially ostensively like most of the stuff that Trump's doing. So it might be hard to get him fully impeached, because even within the Democratic Party, you're going to get people like Schumer and Pelosi and Jeffries that even though they will say they're anti-Trump, they wanted the war in Iran. That's why Schumer is so tame. When he talks about the war in Iran, he doesn't say we shouldn't be there, this is a moral wrong, we should get out and stuff. He says, oh, we did it the wrong way, like it was a paperwork issue, like it was a filing issue. So I think what you would see is probably an attempt to kick Trump out of office, but I think it would fall flat, and you would be able to see which Democrats essentially are establishment stooges that are being paid off, because they're going to get paid off by corporations and things like that to not follow through with it. And what happens a lot of times is the Democrats will actually let Trump do the thing that they've wanted to do because their donors want them to do it. but then they say, oh, then they can stand back and say, oh, we didn't want that. That was so horrible. When really they wanted it the whole time, but they knew if they publicly said that, people would fucking hate them because it's an atrocious view to be that pro business, you know. But yeah.
NBC and ABC fake news have
Yeah,
both
absolutely.
said that they would not cover
Like
this speech
in the
and
U.S.,
what
the
it was
Republicans all
about
want the war.
because of the
They've been wanting the war for a while because they want to feed red meat to their base. But
They
yeah.
don't want to reveal it. They and others in the media are part of a plot. They want to continue this fraud for whatever reason. They want to keep it going. They want to protect the radical left. They can't have a great country, and that's true. You can't have a great country without free and fair elections. Fraud like this.
I don't know if you've seen what the media has to say about the far left, the radical left, but they are not pro-radical left. The idea that they're working for the radical left is insane.
They pay nothing. All we want is honesty in our elections and honesty in reporting. They pay nothing for multi-billion-dollar assets. Great damage has been done to our country. Our elections were left vulnerable to being rigged and stolen, and the trust of the American people was lost. This cannot be allowed to continue. Every American, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or otherwise, should be able to agree that we deserve the most secure, honest, and fair election system anywhere in the world. Secure elections should be a partisan, really, we should be together.
You see this a lot, and I think Republicans have gotten away from saying it's just common sense that you should agree with me, and they've started saying like, oh, this is just a bipartisan issue that we should agree on things that are not, on things that are purely their side, and they just want to make it act like, because they never have the popular mandate. They never have enough people to actually do with popular will what they want to do, because they want to do things like tax cuts for billionaires that don't help regular people, or start a war in Iran and get a bunch of U.S. Army personnel killed, and then fork over a bunch of money to Lockheed Martin so that they can rebuild our arsenal. They're just trying to, pay off their donors that got them into office in the first place, which isn't a popular opinion. And so they've been masking it. For years now, we've heard that, oh, they just have common sense policy, trying to act like they have a mandate of the people, when every election they have less people voting for them than the Democrats. Trump, I think, second election was the first time that a Republican in my lifetime has won with the popular vote. Because they never have the popular vote, and the only reason they did this last time is because Kamala Harris was so ridiculously unpopular. She was so ridiculously uncharismatic that she had a huge wave of popularity right after she announced, and when she was running on really progressive platforms, and it just tapered off throughout the election as she said, oh yeah, I would do the same thing as Biden for everything. A wildly unpopular president, I would not deviate from his path at all, just political suicide right out of the gate, which is just insane when you're running for president. But
from the lists immediately, but most importantly, addressing this crisis of election security demands that Congress must pass the Save America Act. How easy is that to do unless you want to cheat? The only reason you wouldn't do it is you want to cheat because your policies are so bad.
Something to go with this. So the Save America Act is the act he has to basically take a bunch of local and state-run elections and feed all of your personal information into a federal database so that they can take people off voter rolls without telling them and cheat elections, essentially. It's something that couldn't pass before because they were trying to do the Affordable Housing Act, or not the Affordable Housing Act, but the House bill, the housing bill that just went to Trump's desk, and he didn't sign it, and it eventually got automatically accepted after 10 days of being on his desk. And he's throwing his fit because he wanted them to pass the voting bill that he wanted to use to subvert elections. So if they didn't do it before, I doubt they'll do it now. I think they're throwing fodder onto an argument for that so that he can try and get that passed, but I don't think they have the votes. And I don't think this is going to whip enough votes to get it passed. I mean, maybe. Republicans tend to fall in line, not fall in love, so could be the case, but I doubt it. Yeah. So the plan won't change because of the president, because the problem is not the president. The problem is that we're driven by a bunch of capital incentives in the U.S. to basically do the biddings of these corporations that then grows their power, which they reconsolidate into our politics. So it's like a vicious cycle of like these corporations get more power and then they use that to make our politics more essentially pro business, and then they just keep cycling back and forth between the politicians are more and more pro business and they do things that are very wildly unpopular but are very pro business, which gives them more money and more power, and especially with dark money being able to get into our elections since Citizens United, they can just feed that money back into buying off more and more politicians to get a larger majority of people who are like run their entire campaigns and their entire political lives off of the dime of specific corporations that all work in the same class. The owner class essentially. If you're talking about capital theory, so it looks like that's all he had. It was only about 30 minutes, I think, not even. Yeah, like a 10-minute speech. 37 minus 25-minute speech. So not a ton of unexpected stuff. He didn't announce anything specific. He just vaguely gestured at, we have evidence of this stuff. And he said it was on the White House, whitehouse.com. So I pulled up, or whitehouse.org, or .gov, sorry. I pulled up whitehouse.org, gov. I'll get it eventually. Right now it's just a bunch of propaganda. Let's see. What's up with my dude's lip on the military one? Who's sitting there like, give him like the duck face, man. Still no press reliefs. Presidential actions. Oh, fact sheet remarks. Yeah, so these were the remarks we just saw. But then he said that they would be somewhere on here. Maybe they're under the Save America Act, because that was what he was talking about in the first place. No, they're not on here either. So he said he put the evidence on the website. I don't see it anywhere. Let's see. That he will put it on there? Or that he has? So they're saying they're doing an executive order for this stuff, but they're not putting the evidence out. They're doing this Mott and Bailey where they say they have the evidence, but then they don't actually put the evidence out, but then they say we're doing this because we have the evidence. I guess it's not really Mott and Bailey. That's not a swap in the same way, but oh yeah, dude, just go ahead and post those names in the chat there, and then I can have them. So if anybody wants them, they're gonna put some names of some people to follow to get some better reporting on the conflict in the Middle East, specifically around Iran, but just in general in that area of the world. Okay, they're on Telegram. They'll probably post a little clip in the YouTube video for that as well. Sign an executive order. It's order strike this. Related funds. Order improves the integrity of elections. Directing the Attorney General. So this is about that. Safeguarding the vote. United States lags behind. So again, it just talks, and then it links back to the Save America Act, which we already talked about. So, despite him saying it, they will be live again shortly. Zero illegal aliens released into the U.S. by this administration. I'm sure. Hey there. I'd love it if you could like, comment, subscribe, anything to help kind of get this to a broader audience. If you want to, feel free to chat about it in the comment section down below. And I will see you on the next one.